A little bit of preparation can save you a lot of stress because you never can be too prepared when you are traveling internationally. Make sure you pay attention and think about it. Oh, maybe 3 months in advance, I should start applying for this visa and not 3 days in advance.
Have you been dreaming of travel but not sure where to go or how to begin planning? Well, you found the right podcast.
Welcome to Theme Parks and Passports, the travel podcast for every family ready to explore the world, one destination at a time. I'm Melissa Sanchez, travel addict, wife, and mom of 2 big kids. Along with planning all my family adventures, I've been helping others realize their travel dreams through my company, Spellbound Vacations, since 2010.
And I'm Heidi Mackey, a travel enthusiast with a passion for geek and pulp culture. I'm also a wife and a mom of a spicy tween. Since 2017, I've been creating vacation memories for families through my business, House of Mackey Travel. Join us as we share stories, tips, and talk to those in the know to inspire your family's next great adventure.
Because creating family travel memories can happen in any stage of life.
Welcome back, fellow travelers, to another episode of Theme Parks and Passports. I'm Heidi Mackey from House of Mackey Travel, and I'm here with my co-host and fellow travel advisor, Melissa.
Hey everyone, it's Melissa from Spellbound Vacations. Thanks for joining us today. Whether you're planning your first international trip or you're a seasoned world traveler, we've got some crucial info for you today. We're diving into everything you need to know about documents required for international travel. Trust me, this is one of those topics you do not want to overlook.
Totally. It doesn't matter how amazing your itinerary is or how prepared you feel for this. Without the right documentation, they're not going to let you into the country. You're not going anywhere. So let's break it down for you today. What's needed to make sure that you're all set to travel internationally?
There are some things that are pretty universal, but some countries have specific requirements. It's like a travel puzzle. But don't worry, we've got the pieces for you.
Perfect. Let's start with the big one, your passport. If you're going anywhere outside of the United States, you need to make sure that you have your passport with you. It's going to be a golden ticket crossing any border. But here's the catch. It's not just about having one. It needs to be valid for a certain amount of time after you're scheduled to arrive and depart.
Yes, correct. And so for most countries, the rule of thumb is your passport needs to be valid 6 months beyond your travel dates. So if you're planning your trip and your return date is December 15th, your passport needs to be valid until at least June 15th, that 6-month mark. Some countries are incredibly strict about this and won't even let you board the plane if it's too close to your expiration date. So please, when you are booking your trip, check your expiration date on your passport.
Actually, that brings up another good point. So, passport rules, it isn't always about the expiration date. It could also mean that you need to have a certain number of blank pages. Not everybody is using digital anymore. Sometimes they do actual stamps. And so, if you don't have a certain number of blank pages, some countries will turn you away.
Exactly, because you do not want to be that person at the airport who's been told, sorry, your passport doesn't have enough blank pages, back on a flight to the US.
That one, it's like the most ridiculous reason, right?
Yeah.
To have to go home. Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine telling
Heartbreaking.
people that? Like, yeah, I got all the way there, but my passport didn't have enough pages in it, so I'm home.
So let's talk about the next big thing is documentation on your list is actually a visa. Now, this one can be a little bit tricky because not every country requires a visa to enter, but definitely some do. And there's no one size fits all answer, right?
Right, exactly. So visa requirements depends on your nationality, where you're going. Some countries allow visa-free entry. You know, you may find that because we're US citizens that there are quite a few with visa-free entry. Or there's a visa upon arrival, depending on your passport. For others, depending on what kind of passport you have, if it's not a US passport, you may need to apply for a visa in advance. And if you've got a stopover in a country, if you have a long layover, if you have to go through customs, maybe you didn't need a visa for your original country, but you need a transit visa, even though you're not leaving the airport. There's a lot of different things that you need to pay attention to, and they're changing all the time.
Absolutely. I think that's a great tip. And some countries even have different types of visas depending on what your purpose is for your visit. For instance, you have a tourist visa, you have a business visa, or student visas. It's crucial to know what type you need. For most of the time between us, when we're planning for our clients, it's going to be a travel visa. But you need to make sure that you're applying for the right one so that you don't end up with the inappropriate access, correct?
Right. And don't forget processing times too. And that's a big one, either for passports or visas. Visas can take weeks to process. And then there's other visas that you can expedite for a fee. So if you're traveling to a visa required destination, make sure you plan ahead. Make sure you pay attention and think about it. Oh, maybe 3 months in advance, I should start applying for this visa and not 3 days in advance.
Right, absolutely. Now, once you have your visa, sometimes that's not the end of it either, right? Or the countries that have no visa requirements. A lot of them are starting to have pre-registrations where
Mhm.
you need to go in and make sure you're registered for your travel. Or again, if you, just like a country where you're required to get a visa, you may get turned away.
Right. Exactly. There's country like the UK, for example, you have to now register for an ETA. And actually, UK coming to the United States, like residents of the UK coming to the United States have to do the same thing. There is a small fee involved with that. So you need to make sure, again, that you have all your proper documentation in place depending on the country you're visiting.
Yeah, absolutely. The nice things about those is that most of them last for more than one trip,
Yeah,
correct?
exactly. Well, yes and no. There are some like the ETA for the UK that is going to last for multiple trips. But then there's some where there's Caribbean islands that you need to fill out entry forms, and those are specifically just for that trip. So make
Right.
sure you know if you're traveling multiple times to the same destination, you may need to do that form multiple times, every single time you go.
Right. And that's one of the things we'll help you with. The airlines tend to help you with that too, because they want to make sure that you don't have to get back on the plane. But it's always good to check all those different layers, whether it be a visa or an early entry kind of information.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
So we'll shift off of visas. Let's go to health documents. It's another hot topic, especially since everything that's happened in the last couple of years, right? A lot of countries are requiring proofs of vaccinations or health certifications to let you in. Though this isn't new, there's a lot more countries doing it than what's done it in the past, right?
Right. Definitely. And it's not just COVID, right? At this point, a lot of the COVID restrictions have been reduced, and there's maybe still a few countries out there who require it. But you might need proof of things like yellow fever vaccination or vaccination of Hep A or B or negative tests for diseases like malaria for certain reasons. For example, my son a couple of years ago traveled to Zanzibar and Tanzania, and he had to get his yellow fever vaccination and prove that he had it. He also, now this wasn't mandatory, but he also took the malaria pills, which you take before you go, during, and then after, just in case as a precaution. So there's definitely things that you need to make sure, depending on your traveling, that you have all the right vaccinations.
And the first person to talk to would be your doctor. Reach out to your doctor. Make sure that you can get these types of vaccinations through them, along with finding out from the country what it is that they're requiring. They'll help you work through all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So now that we've talked about vaccinations, visas, passport, let's talk about travel insurance. I think that it's something that's not always required, but you definitely should have it. I don't know about you, Melissa, but it's something I really push. It's the one thing that we hope they never use, but make sure that they have, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you never know. And it's not just about canceling either. You never know where you're going to have a
Right.
flight delay, a medical emergency, lost luggage. I have literally had multiple of these things where my husband lost his luggage for 5 days and we had to shop. So between the airline and our travel insurance, we kept all our receipts as things were covered. Last year, there was an airline strike by an airline that we were supposed to fly to England, and we were able to move to another airline, but a day earlier. So I needed to have another hotel. I had to change my transfers. I kept all my receipts, and all of that was covered by my travel insurance. So it's not always just medical or cancellation. So that's something to keep in mind too. So another thing just to think about with travel insurance is that there sometimes when you have a tour book, like for example, I'm doing a G Adventures tour in South Africa in
Mhm.
September. They require travel insurance. I have to show my proof of my travel insurance. Now I can purchase it through them. I have my own policy, but so there's a lot of different reasons other than I'm not going to cancel. I don't need it. Like that's a big
Right.
one we hear. But
Absolutely. Or my medical insurance covers it. I have really good medical insurance. Again, no,
yeah,
that's not it. It's the things you don't have control over, especially in other countries.
right. And
We
or
have
my credit card will insurance will cover it.
right, absolutely.
So I have another, I'm just going to share another quick story. This is another reason it's while not travel insurance, I mean, technically not travel insurance. I rented a car in Northern Ireland and I did not know at the time that my credit card travel insurance or my Allianz travel insurance policy would not cover that. I wasn't 100% sure because I'll be honest, I didn't do my due diligence. And I was like, I'll just get the rental car insurance.
Okay.
That's what I did. I got in an accident. I hit a wall, broke the
Oh
mirror.
no. Oh no.
Yeah, it happens, especially
Yeah.
when you're driving in a country where you're driving on the other side of the road and you're not used to it and the roads are narrow. Anyway, fast forward.
Roundabouts.
Yeah,
Roundabouts.
the
Roundabouts going the
roundabouts.
wrong way.
Oh my God, I almost caused yeah, I won't even get into the roundabout situation. But I returned my car and I had purchased that extra insurance, but I
Mhm.
decided afterwards to do a little digging. So I called my credit card and I said, I rented this car on this card and would this have been covered? And they said, well, yes, except there are 4 countries that we don't cover rental car in. Guess what one of them
Wow.
was? Northern Ireland. So I was like,
Wow.
okay. Then I called my Allianz travel insurance and I said, would this have been covered? And the
Mhm.
answer was no, because I hadn't purchased the extra car rental coverage that I would have needed.
Yes.
So it's point being, do your due diligence. Don't just think that your credit card travel insurance or even your purchase travel insurance will cover things like rental car. It's always so important to pay attention. And us as travel advisors, while we can kind of guide you, it really is up to you to make sure that you are familiar with what coverage you have when you are traveling.
Absolutely. And make sure you have copies of the policy with you. I think that's a good leadway into that because you
Yeah.
may be in a country where you don't have data. You may be in a spot where there is no
Mhm.
data. Being able to pull up something digitally may not happen. So make sure that you either have a saved copy that you can access onto your phone without any data, or you have a paper copy. Because if you do run into any of these problems, you're going to need access to the phone numbers that you need to reach out to, your policy number, and what your coverage is.
Yeah, and I'm old school. I print literally
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
I'll take a folder with me full of like printouts. And while we're talking about these kind of just in case documents,
Mhm.
um, keep a copy of your flight itinerary, your hotel reservation, any emergency contacts. Like Heidi said, either so you can access it if you're offline or a printed copy that you carry with you because there are some countries too aside from the having that insurance that may ask you for proof of accommodation, may ask you for proof of return ticket at immigration. So it's really important to be able to access these whether you print them or have the ability on your phone or your iPad to access them when you're offline.
I think that's a good tip for groups too, because it may not be you that everything's the name that is the name that's on anything. So by having the proof of whatever your itinerary is or whatever your piece is, it helps them connect the dots a little bit.
Exactly. Exactly.
And if you don't want to take paper, what I do for some of my information, there's definitely stuff that I print out and I make sure I put into my backpack. But I take screenshots
Mm,
so that it's in my photos. I have access to them whenever I need them.
yes. And not just my documents, I actually have screenshots of my passport, my real ID, and when I needed the COVID-19 vaccination card, I had a screenshot of that. And I know when we travel to Africa and I need the proof of vaccinations, while I may have a printout, I will definitely be taking a screenshot of that too. That way,
Yeah.
if you ever have a problem, you've got some sort of proof or identification.
Yeah. And for those, they really do need the paper. But if you lose it, if you um, can't find it within your bags, at least you're one step closer versus having them just take your word for it.
Right, right.
And
Absolutely. I mean, these are some great tips on where to keep kind of your digital documents, keeping everything safe, making sure you have copies of everything. And again, like we just said, if you're going to rely on digital copies, make sure you've got a backup on your phone or in those offline copies in case. That's really the most important part, because if you don't have Wi-Fi and all you have is a digital copy that you can't access, that's really not going to help anything.
that actually brings up another good point from passports is make a copy of your passport and leave it with somebody you trust at home.
Mm, yeah, definitely a good point. And even some of your other travel documents, make sure that somebody who's not traveling with you knows what your flight itinerary is, knows where your hotels are. And it doesn't not even, like, I know right now we're talking international travel, but it doesn't even have to be international travel. I know my husband and I both travel a lot for work, and there'll be times where I'll be like, "Where are you staying? What hotel? When do you come home?" Like, it's so
Mhm.
important to have somebody else. God forbid something happen, you lose something, you lose your ID, you lose your passport, you know, it's always important to make sure somebody knows where you are.
I have
Find
to
you.
admit, my husband is not my first one to send my documents to. For some reason, I have been trained so well. I always send a copy to my mom.
Yeah.
Don't know why. He
But at
doesn't
least
even know it's
somebody knows.
coming, and all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, you were in England. Yeah, you have the itinerary in your email, mom. Oh, that's good to know."
Yeah, yeah. But at least somebody knows where you are. So,
Yes.
if you need something, you can get it.
Well, and actually for internationally, they ask you for an emergency contact. So
Yes.
again, also make sure your emergency contact it knows that you're leaving. It's
Yeah.
always nice for them to know what's going on too.
It always helps. It always helps for sure. For
Oh,
sure.
yeah, I'm trying to think. Do you have any other tips and tricks you think we should share?
I think we have covered pretty much anything. But here's a little bonus tip, and it's something that honestly, even I don't always think about. But
Mhm.
carry with you when you're traveling internationally some extra little passport photos. You know how they're small when you get them done at CVS or wherever it is that you're going. Believe it or not, there are some countries who might ask you for one when you get your visa. If you're getting your visa when you land in that particular country, it's one of those things that you can easily overlook. And honestly, it's not even something that I think about most of the time. But it's just kind of an extra little tip if you're depending on where you're traveling to.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. Something I'd like to mention about cruises actually is if you're on a cruise, you may not be required to get a visa for each stop.
Okay.
Most of the time, the cruise ship takes care of that for you. But it's still a good idea to kind of know what each country requires so that if you were to, heaven forbid, miss the
Yep.
cruise, that means you're now a guest in that country.
And you
So
need
you
to
should
get home.
probably know what's going on.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. A little bit of preparation can save you a lot of stress because you never can be too prepared when you are traveling internationally. So, yeah, with that, let's jump right into our Would You Rather segment. This week, with all the talk about international travel, would you rather go on a safari in Africa, or climb Machu Picchu in Peru. What do you think, Heidi?
For me, I think I'd rather do the safari in Africa, in all honesty. And I'd have to say it's because of the animals.
Yeah.
I really would, seeing animals in their natural habitats and being part of their world versus them being part of mine, I feel very connected to that. How
Yeah,
about you?
I think, I mean, they're both on my bucket list, but definitely safari in Africa is one of the top things I had always wanted to do. And I'm excited to say that I will be doing that in September. So
Yeah.
definitely going to be checking that off the bucket list. So yeah, safari is my top for sure.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. I can't wait. We've got a mini safari planned, but nothing
Awesome.
to the extent of yours. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. I think it should be a lot of fun. So with that, I think we covered the major issues about traveling internationally. So to recap, let's just say make sure that your passport is valid and that it has space. Check the visa requirements. We're going to try to link in some of the comments some resources for you. They're not the only resources, but there are a couple that we'd like to share. Keep your health documents, make sure they're up to date, and the requirements that you need for those countries are covered. And consider travel insurance for sure. It's something that you should have, just like home insurance, just like car insurance. It's something that you really should have and hope that you never have to use. And don't forget to back up your digital files for sure.
Absolutely. Those are all great points. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into Theme Parks and Passports this week. And until next time, happy travels.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcast player. And while you're there, feel free to leave us a rating and review.
Check out the show notes for links to Spellbound Vacations LLC and House of Mackey Travel. Until next time, keep living your best travel life.